So good afternoon. This is my pleasure to be here and presenting preliminary results about a study which focuses on physical activity of adolescents in New Caledonia. So to start, we can have a small background of the situation because, as you know, Pacific Islands and countries and territories have undergone rapid socioeconomic changes, and especially since the middle of the 20th century. And the globalization induced important modifications in terms of islanders' lifestyle. And that's why from a rural way of life, mainly based on agriculture and its rhythms of daily life, many of the islanders tend now to have a modernized urban way of life that is closer to a Western way of lifestyle. So, and this is seen in the Pacific Islands and territories, but this is seen also all over the world. And this transition has had an impact on nutrition because the access to processed cheap food is very easy compared to what have to be done to produce food in traditional system. And the impact has also been seen on the physical activity, which was practiced naturally and regularly because of the traditional way of life. And there were also consequences for other components of society. For instance, we can talk about the family structure, society organization, etc. But we will not discuss about that today. And there were also consequences. Yes, and so as there's consequences of the islanders' health has suffered from this one. And we can talk about the non-communicable diseases and the associated factors, including the overweight and obesity. So about the obesity and the overweight, we have already looked some figures about that today, and to have like a summary, we know that up to 20% of children are obese in the peaks, and about 30% of the adolescents are obese. And some levers to tackle this issue is can be nutrition and physical activity. So as you know, today we will focus on physical activity. So we can talk about some previous study that studied the physical activity especially in New Caledonian adolescents. That was a study with this method. That was a questionnaire, a well-known questionnaire, IPAC, about the physical activity of adolescents, which also focused on socio-environmental factors influencing the physical activity. Some other measurements were done, like anthropometric and some characteristics about the socio-demographic. And this first study, the results of this first study was that about 60%, so 2 on 3, declared engaging in PA more than 60 minutes per day. So that sounds pretty good. This level is the one recommended by the World Health Organization. And we also saw differences according to place of living and ethnic community. And we saw association between physical activity, sitting time, and weight status. but that was not significant in girls and a bit significant in boys, especially regarding the sitting time. And that was not so much for the physical activity. Yes, physical activity, moderate and vigorous physical activity. But as you know, because we focused on the physical activity, the data we collected were subjective data. So that's why we wanted to improve this method and work with objective data like the one collected by accelerometers. This is a device that collects data for about 7 consecutive days, and we can have like a time series like this one showed here. But from this kind of data, researchers interested in physical activity usually try to find out if the adolescent's behavior matches with guidelines. For instance, the one we talked about, the World Health Organization guideline. And that is why from this data, they can process it to aggregate and to get some tables like that with some aggregation, averages, and etc. And in many cases, finally, we have they are mainly interested in the average times of MVPA, so moderate and vigorous physical activity. So this is very nice to get objective data, but this is clear, as you know, that there is a very big loss of information by this kind of process. So that is why that with this study, we wanted to assess the physical activity behavior through some components of it, and to identify the components that are the most associated with adolescents' weight status. So when I talk about the components, I mean the sedentary time, light physical activity, moderate and vigorous physical activity. And all these levels can be, yes, we can aggregate this like with the average, median, the standard deviation, and etc. So you see, we can process many components of physical activity, and then we would like to compare with previous studies focusing on similar populations. So for the methods, that was quite the similar ones of the previous study, but we use generative accelerometer data, so 7 days recording, and then we process all this time series to get components with the different physical activity levels and some statistical indicators. And when we compute all these indicators, we have about 170 indicators. And as we are working with objective data, and because of the cost of the devices, so now we don't have some hundreds participants, but we have only 191 participants. But this is quite good for this kind of the study. So about the statistical method, we employed descriptive statistics. We tried to study the correlations between the variables, all the PI components we talked about before. And through predictive methods, we tried to select the most predictive variables with, for instance, with backward-forward selection in regressions, with predictive methods for selection by regressions. And we have some short results, but we have to continue and process again with the SVM RFE methods, so support vector matching, regressive feature elimination. And why not? We can imagine some other nonlinear methods. So some results about that. The first one, this is the descriptive statistics. So for this slide, this is about the sedentary activity time. And what we look here is that the main significance is about the ethnic community, and which can be different from one community to another. And especially the Melanesian adolescents are the less sedentary. About the light physical activity, we have some other significant difference. So regarding the pace of living, ethnic community, and weight status. So you have here the tables. And similarly, so the Melanesian ones are a bit less active regarding the light physical activity. And for the MVPA, quite all the components are, quite all the features are significant. So sex, place of living, ethnic community, and SOS. And now, if you are focusing on the main aim of the study, so what we have done is to use all the correlations and try to remove the components that are the most correlated from one to another. So from this large data set with many components, we can get to the right one when we focus on the components regarding the full week. And if we process with the same way, we have this kind of feature reducing for the weekdays and for weekend. With this after the elimination, so we processed the data and we discovered that some components are quite correlated with the weight status. I don't show the details, but the main results we can advance through all these correlations is that the components of LPA and sedentary activity often emerge from selections. And that is interesting because in many times researchers focus on MVPA and not really on this kind of PA components. Then with a predictive approach, we saw that we have quite the same results. And similarly, LPA and sedentary activity are really important to consider. And this is not only the MVPA. When using these selected features, we can try to consider a model by adding the cofactors like sex and place of living, etc. And what we can show is that the sedentary activity is very important also to consider. And then the next one is about the interaction showed by this model. This is not really so important for this presentation, but it's good to have a clear idea that sometimes we can have a reverse relation between the time. For instance, this one for the sedentary time, according to the cofactor that is considered. And to finish, the last interesting results we can consider is about the use of SVM RFE. And we show that the results are quite the same, that selected features from a model, selected features from a model to another remain very similar. And once again, we see that the sedentary activity seems to be very important to consider when focusing on the weight status. So finally, we can highlight that this is consistent with previous studies, because some other studies use some methodology that are very very special to process this kind of data. So there are some pros and cons about this kind of methods. This is for this one is this is easy to calculate, and the selection of features are easily understood by the non-mathematicians. So this may be useful to address some recommendation, but in the same time, we cannot hope to get prediction accuracy like the more specific methods like used by AI or by neural networks like that. So as perspectives, we can try to go further with a similar approach on weight status, because the one I presented today is about the z-scores of weight status. So we can work on categorization instead of work on continuous data. We can go further with the models I presented here, and as I said, we did not use the potential of we didn't use all the potentials of the continuous data, because we used like others some aggregations. And why not? We can try to use this method with artificial intelligence models. So thank you for your attention. And if you have some questions.
Thank you. Spot on time. Any questions or discussion points for Guilherme?
Yes. One question about the measurement of physical activity and sedentarity. Yeah. Do you have, in addition to the accelerometer data, some qualitative elements on the type of activity or non-activity that the children of the children. For example, we saw the less sedentarity and more activity for in rural area. We can have supposition, for example, that this can be the work on agriculture work maybe. So do you have maybe some additional qualitative question to these children, or maybe do you think about future work on these qualitative elements?
Thank you, Jonas, for this interesting question. So for this study, no, we don't have. So sorry, we don't have this information. But if I don't miss, this is a research for that Thibaut Durini. Olivier, this is Thibaut Durini who worked on this kind of data and tried to match the schedule of the students and try to match with this accelerometer data. Yeah. Yes, and spatialization. So this is a work that have been done, and this is very interesting. Thank you.
I think we'll open it up to all of the speakers. I think the Pacific Lab people aren't here anymore, but we can have a more general discussion as well as Guillemy's talk. Any points, discussion points, questions? Okay, I'll kick off with one. How do you interpret the relationship between PA levels and body composition and overweight or obesity? Because, of course, you don't have causation. You don't know which way that goes.
So, yes, so the main idea is to better understand why the students are, or why the adolescents are obese or overweight. So we expected like a good correlation, but as you know, as you see here, this is not so easy because, for instance, for the MVPA, we have some correlations with pace of living, etc. But no, we don't have we don't have this simple correlation with the weight status. So this is not so easy, but we wanted to dig more, to go further with the analysis and to try. This is like data mining. We wanted to see all the correlations and all the variables we can imagine to try to find which components can be in correlations. Of course, this won't be a causal relation, but this will be a start.
The reason I ask is we encountered the same thing in an analysis of nutritional population, nutritional data, where you can detect very clear, statistically very strong relationships between variables and energy intake, but you don't detect the relationship with body composition or BMI. And what we think is happening there is that there's a disjunction in time scales. So if you do even a 1-week food diary, it's a very short snapshot of what's being eaten, but it takes years for body composition to change, and that introduces a sort of break in relationships that you'd expect to see. But even if in your case, even if you do see the relationship, if you see that physical activity correlates with negatively with BMI, for example, how do you disentangle whether that is a case of people who exercise less have higher BMI or people who have BMI exercise less? That's the causality thing I was getting at.
Yes. So, yes, of course, we have only 7 days of recording, but yes, we also expect that this is like a behavior. So with the mass of data, we expect that this is quite similar to what they are used to do in terms of physical activity. And mainly regarding the nutrition, this is quite similar. We have food recall or for 1 day or for 1 week, and we expect that the answers can be an assessment of the behaviors.
Yeah. Thank you, Guillaume. I wonder if your question, David, was more, is it because they are less active that they are more overweight, or is it because they are overweight that they are less active? So how does it play out? Difficult to say, maybe, but I think it's a very good point. Yeah.
And yes, and of course we are focusing on physical activity, but as we say since many years ago, this is really a complex issue. This is multifactorial. So yes, we are focusing on physical activity, but there are many parameters we have to take in account to well understand the relations.
Yeah, it's not often I can say that nutrition is relatively simple to some other form of analysis. Where in this case it is, because at least we can do randomized control trials to establish what the direction of causality is. So we can take human subjects into an experiment and manipulate the diet composition and measure how much they eat in relation to different macronutrient compositions, for example, like I showed in my talk this morning. But it's much more difficult in your case, isn't it? You can't really do those randomized control trials between physical activity level and body composition.
we can take some adolescents and tell to them to go see Olivier and to have a big training with them for 1 year.
Yeah, but your question is very interesting, David, because there may be a gradient where when obesity starts to develop, it doesn't necessarily is a barrier to exercise, but there may be a threshold or a point where obesity becomes actually a barrier to physical activity. And I don't think we take that into consideration with the intervention that are put in place. And I think that would be a very good point. And I think your data can feed a little bit into this, because the very important point here is that there's a strong focus on moderate to vigorous physical activity. And so the level of activity that is actually difficult to engage with, because there's a feeling of effort and you have to really commit to it. But what you show is that actually light physical activity may be something important that's been not considered as important as it is. And that would be much easier as an intervention to take people on board for light activity rather than straight away putting them into this very high intensity activity. So yeah, I think there's a lot in it.
I mean, I'm wondering whether you couldn't mathematically or statistically test for what you've just mentioned, that at some point there's a threshold. If you look at the relationship in a nonlinear regression and you see that regularly there's a kink point where the relationship changes, something's happening in that relationship. And maybe that identifies the point you're looking at. For any other questions? Giving me some physical activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your presentation is very interesting. Yes, my name is Lyndon. I'm from Sino. I think just a clarification. When you look at adolescents, do you compare with male and female? Are you looking at what's the difference between male and female as well?
Yes, we did this.
Okay.
Yeah, for instance.
Yes. That's why I'm asking. I noticed that there is a difference between the male and the female in terms of the values.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any reason behind that for the difference in sex? Why I want to understand is because in fish, I'm a fish biologist. What we understand is, in terms of biology, the cost of producing egg is much more expensive than the cost of producing sperm. So there is a difference in terms of utilizing the energy between the sexes. I don't know. I'm looking from a point of view of fish. For human being is different from fish as well, but I'm asking whether you also consider biology, metabolic activities within the body also can play, because maybe I don't know, but you can explain it. Can you explain why is the difference there in terms of sex?
I'm not sure in terms of biology, but yes, this is interesting. Your remark is very interesting, and maybe I'm not sure that this is only the only reason, but in terms of culture too. For instance, this was a study from Paul Zongo, who noted that in the Melanesian way of life, the women or the girls have less physical activities, important vigorous physical activities than the men. For instance, they work at home, for instance, while the men or the boys are in the field or in the garden or something like that, or fishing. So this is not really a biologic reason, but maybe sometimes this can be cultural too.
I want to continue on this question on the So I want to ask you the question. Can we control that? Because it's true that even if there is maybe more time spent or less time spent on physical activity, maybe les efforts, comment on dit les efforts? The efforts, same word but in French. The efforts are maybe stronger for a shorter time than for a longer time. So with those accelerometer have a way to measure this difference of efforts and not only the difference of time.
Yes, of course. This measure the acceleration. So after that, we have some levels of physical activity according to the acceleration. So yes, that's why we are able to make the difference between moderate and vigorous physical activity, light physical activity, and sedentary activity. So this is by this kind of device, we are able to quantify the efforts, and of course the time they spent in each level of physical activity.
Since I have the microphone, I have to use it. Due to the fact that you apply the accelerometer to adolescent once for 7 days, don't you think that having the material doesn't change the behavior, because children knows that study can be developed and after? Do you intend to measure different periods seasonally when they are on full school time or when they are on holidays? Do you plan to do it to have a measure that can give a right lifestyle of a younger body?
Thank you, Jean-Marie. So actually, for this study and for many others, for those we used the accelerometry. The device was put only for 1 week or for 7 days, but we are working with the Movado project, and in which so this is not all along the year, but this is only for 2 times for the year, and mainly the start and probably the end of the year. And this is supposed to be for the same children, for the same adolescents, on the start and at the end of the year. So of course this is not all along the year, but this may be a start of a long tracking. Or maybe Olivier, you want to complete? No?
Thank you, Guillaume, for the very interesting presentation. I'm interested in your comparison between Melanesian group and the other one. Do you, for example, try to understand the reason why there is this difference? And I am asking if did you study, for example, the perception of Melanesian adolescent towards sport, or maybe there are some other reasons, maybe economics reason, who explain this difference in your table that contribute to maybe the fact that they are not doing many physical activities. So I am just asking this question: if you study go to this extent of studying the perception of Melanesian adolescent student in regards to physical activity. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre, for this question. So about the reason why this is different from Melanesian to Caucasian to others, actually we don't have really done some qualitative data for knowing, for answer to properly answer to this question. However, this is not a PhD study, a PhD with Marie-Jeanne, yes, who is studying the barriers and the facilitators of physical activities, and she's working on the comparison. So she looks what happened for male, female, what are the barriers, what are the facilitators for Melanesians, for Caucasian, and for others. So this will come. Tomorrow you come. What time tomorrow? La pub.
Which room?
10:55. 10:55 tomorrow you will have the answer. Here.
Any other questions, discussion points? Rowena? No problem. No problem. Enjoying myself.
Thank you, Guillaume, the man with all the answers. So we're asking lots of questions. Whether it was in this study or elsewhere, do you have a sense of how adolescents of different ages do moderate physical MVPA? Does it, and how that changes over the different ages of adolescence?
Regarding the age, this was introduced. I don't remind. Sorry, I have not focused on this, but this was in this study. In this one, the first one I described. I don't remind. Sorry. As far as I'm this one in small letters. As far as I remember, there were some interactions with between age and some other cofactors, but I don't remind which one.
Okay.
And
no
how
worries.
was the relation. Sorry.
That's okay.